All right, I think we will start. So thank you guys for coming today. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough, so if I do cough, just excuse me. But I've got a lot of water and a lot of cough drops for me, so excuse me. So today we're going to talk about how to recruit and lead a rockstar remote team. And so there's really two parts. There's three parts of this presentation, which I will walk through. So I just asked this, so we can skip this. So today what we're really going to talk about is talk a little bit about me. I'm going to share my experience, my background, and then I'm going to share what are some typical challenges of leading a remote team is like. And then the three things that I believe are absolutely critical for having a remote team is when you start is finding the right people and then setting up the right processes, and then as you scale your remote team is basically building the right culture. So I'm going to tell you about me. So I've led remote teams for 7 years. I'm currently managing a remote team of 20 people. I built a B2B SaaS business with zero funding, totally bootstrapped it, built 3 successful online businesses. I'm really interested in remote work. My current business, Rightly Social, it's my first company where I have a remote working team, but before that I didn't really do remote work. And I started off doing it purely because of the save cost actually, and also because of talent. These are two things. And what I try to do is I try to also ask other remote companies what did they do. So I went out and interviewed over 20 companies, and some of the most famous fully distributed companies that are around the globe today. And when people say fully distributed, they mean that there's nobody that sits in an office with more than 2 people. It's all one. Everybody's just fully distributed. So you've got some companies like Buffer, who's a social media company, Zapier, who connects different apps together, SendGrid, who's an email company. So you have all these companies, so typically tech and like agencies, consulting style, that typically adopt this model. And I got the best practices from all of them, so I can share them with you. So I'm saving you over 40 hours of your time. So why remote working? So some of the things that you guys have mentioned just now. The first thing is the war on talent. And this is a global epidemic. It's a global problem. You just can't find good A-player talent all the time, whether it's developers, education, developers again. It's just difficult to find them. And because the other thing is millennials. The millennials tend to jump around a lot now. They don't stay in the same business or the same company for a very long time. And so there's a constant war and battle for people for your business to maintain and to grow your business. The globalization of ultra high-speed internet. So I'm not talking about just internet. I'm talking about high-speed internet that is now global. You can hire somebody from Vietnam, hire somebody from Myanmar, hire somebody from Pakistan, developing countries that have access to high-speed internet, which means the source of people that you can get and the price of labor that you can get is much more cheaper and much more in supply. So there's a lot of supply in India for software developers, and taking advantage of that will allow you to push your business to the next level. So this globalization effect is a huge change. Desire for freedom and work-life balance. So I'm 34 and I'm getting older. I'm going into the next phase of my life. I don't need to be in the city. And this goes for a lot of people around the world. You don't need to live in the city anymore. You don't have to be there. People don't want to commute 1 or 2 hours anymore. In Hong Kong, it's actually kind of normal, but the average commute time in the United States is 1 hour, but even then people don't even want to do that. So people want to spend time with their families, with their kids. People want the freedom of schedule so that they can work whenever they want and they can work anywhere where they want. So this new trend has been happening. Remote working has actually been increasing over the past few years. In the United States, 30% of the employee workforce in the United States are working remotely to some extent. So remote working, I believe, is the future of work. We don't have to be in this traditional model of an office. Like everybody coming to an office is built from the 19th century of the Industrial Revolution. Everybody went to the factory to build stuff. And so people are like, well, everybody should go to the office and do the same thing. But that model is changing, and we need to adapt to that. So here's a typical story. You want to create content, develop programming, hire somebody to educate, consult. You go on Upwork and you write your job description or your task. And you tell them that this is what you want to do. And you hire. And then you try to manage them because they're not in front of you. And you start to get frustrated because you don't know if you're doing it right. You get what their output back and it's wrong. It's not up to your standard. And you start to get frustrated. And then what ends up happening is you don't get the final product that you want, or you spend so much time with a freelancer, you're like, oh, I might as well have done it myself. So it seems like remote working is something where it's like a mountain you're climbing and you're against the headwind. It just seems really difficult. So a lot of people will say, well, why is remote working so hard? How come I can't manage people remotely? It's just through phone. Why is it so difficult? Here's my theory. The NBA just had their finals, and we're now going through the World Cup. So this is a really timely slide. The way how I see centralized traditional work is like playing basketball. Everybody's in close contact. Everybody's right next to each other. I can tell you, oh, hey, go there. Hey, mark that guy. Oh, let's shoot. And then if you told the same basketball team and you told them, hey, go play soccer. Everybody is so spread out, you can barely talk to each other. Do you think a basketball team, a professional basketball team, will be able to play soccer? Like, you're even using the different part of your leg to like play with the ball. It's totally different. Remote working is the same thing. You're playing a different game with different rules. You cannot apply the same rules to a different game. So here are what I have kind of distilled down, are the 3 key things that you need. Recruiting for remote working is critical. Like any team, like any company, but for remote working is even more important. And I'll tell you why as we go along. The processes need to be different. When you work in a central environment, you're right next to each other. So you don't need the process. You just tell them what the process is. Oh, hey, go do this, go do that, and blah, blah, blah. I can write it down for you, done. But when you're in remote working, you're not sitting next to that person. You need to have it defined. And if you don't, then everybody's guessing. And of course you won't get things done. Culture. The reason why culture is important is that because you're not sitting next to each other, you don't have that time to like, oh, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? Or, you spend 8 hours a day working, but you got to be lying if you spend all those 8 hours solidly working and not talking to that other person about something else. Like you might be talking about it's totally unrelated to work, but you don't notice that. It might be 30 minutes, 45 minutes per day that's actually not productive. But is it important to your team culture? Is it important for me to ask you, hey, how's your kids? Yeah, it is important because you want to have that team bonding. But in remote work, you don't have that. It doesn't exist. I'll teach you how to get around that. All right, let's start with people. So here I'm going to distill what is most ideal for a remote worker, the qualities that you want to look for. In my opinion, when you start doing remote work, or you start having a team, you initially want to focus on soft skills and personality fit rather than their actual hard skills. So like a developer, you should focus more on their personality and skills rather than how good they are at developing a software. I'll tell you why. They might be an amazing developer or amazing consultant, but if they don't have these qualities, the relationship will fail. Okay? They need to be highly self-motivated and proactive. You're not in front of them to tell them and monitor them. They need to be able to do that themselves. Worked remotely before or understands what remote working is like. This is most ideal. But I can understand you may find people that haven't, but this is the most ideal, is that they have experience. So they know exactly, they already know the rules to the game. You don't have to teach it to them. Excellent writing and communication skills. How are you going to communicate with your remote employee? Can somebody tell me what are some common ways to communicate with somebody remotely?
Skype, I think, is the most common one. Skype, Hangouts, I mean.
Video chat?
Yeah.
WeChat's chat? Gmail, email, okay. What do you need? Okay, so chat and email, you need to be good at writing. Video chat, you need to be good at speaking. There's no body language. In real person, you can look at my body language. I'm like, kind of not bored. You can see the things in body language, but that's not present. And by the way, you could also do audio chat as well, like phone. But that eliminates the visual part. Communication is key. If they're not a good communicator, it's just, you're making your job or your team a lot tougher. And I've had people that don't communicate. It's like literally like pushing a snail up a mountain. It's really tough. Recruit for cultural fit over skill. Repeating what I just said. Does not need much guidance, is independent. This is important. Somebody that you don't micromanage all the time. If you have to micromanage them, and they're always like, oh, I don't know what to do, oh, blah, 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 it's going to be really tough on you because you're basically taking care of somebody constantly. Dependable and trustworthy, really important. Somebody who's dependable and trustworthy. So a good way to do this is somebody who maybe you work with them together for a period of time. You trust them, you understand. You say, hey, let's do a test, 1 week test. All right, trust is still there. And you go, okay, let's do 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You can also do it that way. It doesn't have to be immediate, is my point. All right, where to post, where to find them. So here's some websites. I will share this. You guys will have a copy. So this is for a variety of jobs, for developers, designers, writers, marketers, the whole bunch. Some of them you need money to kind of post, like anything. And some of them are free. Interview process. So the interview process is similar to kind of how you normally do it. I've just made a few adjustments to kind of make it easier for you. You get your candidates, you get your resumes, you filter through them, screen them, and then the hiring manager does a video interview with the candidate. If this person's remote work, I say there's absolutely no point in interviewing them in person. Don't interview somebody if the main way to communicate is through video or chat. Why? That's not the way how you're going to communicate normally. You need to see how they act in video, and you need to see how they act in chat. Some people even do just chat interview if that job requires them to just chat. Job test. So a job test, I don't like looking at CVs anymore. Like, I think CVs it's useless. People can say whatever they want in the interview. It's utterly meaningless. It's important. Certain things you can ask are important, but I want to test if you can do the job. So I create specific job tests. Like, if it's somebody that does a lot of Excel work, I create an Excel spreadsheet that gives them instructions, and I tell them to go and do that. And I tell them to record what you did, a screen recording, and show me that screen and send it to me. I'll show you later how that's done. And then do a group panel Skype interview with final candidates. And sometimes I'll ask them to, hey, it'll be like 3 of us, and I'll ask the candidate beforehand and say, present something that you love, that you're passionate about for 15 minutes, and present it to us. That tests their communication skills, it tests them in a group setting, it tests a lot of things, and make sure that they can communicate. Here's the thing, here's the key. Trial freelancing 1 to 3 months. You're down to that one candidate, do a 1-month trial. Don't commit. And the remote, it's not like they have to, you have to try for 3 months. Just do it for a month. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then that. It's paid. It's a trial. It's paid. But give yourself some leeway to get an exit if it doesn't work out. All right, this is a lot of text. This is an example of somebody writing content. And for my company, Riotly, find the next topic for your anchor article. Produce a video recording of yourself on your screen. Show your methodology and what data sources you use to decide what topic you will write. So in the video, she'll describe, okay, this is what I did, this is my approach, and then she'll go through the research that you did, walk me through what you looked at, and send us the link to the Google Doc, which you wrote into, of the article, put in the artwork if you have any, and then just send it to me. So my job for this person is to write articles and to find topics. So here's the job test, and you can do it. And later on, you'll see this part. I'll show you.
Website itself, and I scrolled through what blog posts are already there, sort of on the website, to get a feel of what sort of content the company itself is putting out there, how they're drawing people in. And then what I wanted to do was create something that was unique, that I didn't see here. So the next thing I did was I started just Googling, researching what are the top trends, what are people looking to know in 2018 about Instagram and how to grow their pages, and what's changed within the app itself, the platform that has altered how things work, how you actually get users. So if I look here at my research, so here I have a list of all of, I mean, this isn't even all of them, but it's a lot of the links that I had visited. A lot of these are the links to the actual research that I use in my article.
I'm not going to let you go through the whole thing, but you get the gist. So I see the research that she did, and I see her face, and I see how she communicates, and I can see how she thinks. That's the most important part. So I know if she has no idea what she's doing, or, yeah, she's a pretty smart cookie. She kind of knows what she's doing. And now this clip is 11 minutes long, but it's a good way to kind of, really easily get a feel for that client, for that candidate. And I would argue it's even better way than your normal, your normal in-person to person test. Okay, this is what a group interview looks like. It's on Google Hangouts. There's all the people here, then there's one candidate here, and you just all kind of together ask questions if your team is big. This is useful, so you just save time. Everybody asks a certain set of questions within 10 minutes, then everybody gets to hear the answers, so it's just time saving. You do this part is mostly for culture fit. And you ask those questions, like situational, behavioral questions, like, tell me a time when you face a challenge, and what did you do? Those kind of questions, and those will be useful for here. This is like the final stage. After this, then it's the freelancing part. All right, set up the right processes. So you've got your new employee. Now, how do I train them and onboard them? It's really important that you set expectations and communication etiquette right at the beginning. So for my company, if somebody's remote working, if I send them a chat, they need to respond to me if they're an operational person. They've got to respond to me like immediately. That's your role. Salesperson, other people, a bit different. But you need to outline what are the communication. I'll tell you why. If you don't, you type them something, and it takes 20 minutes for them to reply. What do you think? What's going through your head? Are they working? Are they there? What are they doing? So you need to set the right expectations. Another expectation I tell them is, if you're going to leave your keyboard, AFK, away from keyboard, and you got to go do something or whatever, let me know in advance. Even if it's for 1 hour, I don't care. Tell me in advance if you're not going to be there. Because that leads me the expectation so that I don't have to go hunting for you, right? Because if you're not there for an hour, what are you going to think? Wait, are they even working? Like, what's going on? So it's important that you set those expectations very clearly up front at the beginning so you don't have misunderstanding. That's the most important part. Assign someone to train the new hire. This is obvious. 90-day roadmap plan, specific things to get done. So if this is for more larger companies, if you have like 30, 40 people, like you hire a new person, it's easy for that person to get lost. Like, oh yeah, there you go. It's better to find someone and then give them a very clear 90-day plan. Here are the things that you got to do for the next 90 days. And it gives them a very, very focused checklist of what they need to do as they get used to it. Because in a normal work setting, you'd be, oh, hey, I have a question. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I don't know. Like, should I do this, do that? They have that opportunity to talk to people. In remote, you don't. So it's better to provide a guideline. And finally is share the processes in the training videos. So processes. So there's a lot of software out there where you can define the process if you have a very standard workflow. Process Street's one of them. I know that nobody likes documenting their workflow. Nobody likes to do that stuff. I mean, I didn't do it for a while. But as your team grows, it becomes more and more important. And there's a lot of ways where you can document it. One way is to use software like this. The more standardized this is, in my opinion, the earlier you invest, you get a lot of benefits and fruits of that labor down the road. I employed it too late, and so there's still a lot of confusion in my company around certain types of things. Record training. This is the app that I used just now that I asked the candidate to use. It's called Use Loom or Loom. And basically, it's a Chrome extension. It just records your screen. And it has a little picture of yourself here. So I use this to train. So when I'm training somebody and I say, hey, here is the process, blah, 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 and I don't want to say it again, just record it. And then the next person does the same job and they just watch the video. It's a bit lazy, but I'm just like, just watch the video. And plus, then I'm also lazy too, right? Like, I don't want to write it all down. Oh, it's in the video. The third reason why it's great is people can't absorb like a 1 hour or even 30-minute process on the first try. Like you think, oh, it's so easy, it's so simple, but it's not to another person. But the video allows them to rewatch it, go through it step by step at their own pace. It's good for their own learning. So it's good to kind of give the right format so that they can learn it in the quickest way possible. So this thing's great. I use this for everything, like send messages to other people. I think it's great. Best practices with remote management. So like any kind of company, it's really important to have clear and measurable goals and metrics to keep people accountable. So it's typical, right? I mean, every company sort of does this. Most of them do. The challenge with remote companies is that if you don't see them, you don't know what they're doing. If you don't know what they're doing, it's very easy to assume that they're being lazy or you just have no idea. So you need to have clear goals and metrics. And that is really, really important. And later on, I'll talk about the weekly check-ins that you should have with them to review those goals and metrics so you can say, hey, here's the goal. You didn't meet the goal. Why not? How can I help you? Blah, 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 and have that conversation. Radical transparency. Now, this is something where it's a lot of remote companies really promote because in remote work, you don't have a lot of communication with each other. Having more transparency, like for example, if I had a meeting with you and other people weren't there, we would record the meeting and upload it so that anybody can see at any point in time. If I made a decision, if we have any work policies, some companies are so extravagant that they are super transparent about their strategy, about everybody's salaries, about all the equity, about all the HR policies. It's all public, not only within the company, but outside. Now, this is really extreme, but the point is that because there's no communication, they opted that radical transparency is the only way to overcome that. Constant reiteration, communication is oxygen. This is key. This is absolutely key. I find myself repeating myself all the time. But it's just part of the job. In fact, at large companies, they do the same thing. Leaders of large companies do the same thing, they reiterate. It's no different in remote. Communication is oxygen. If people aren't talking to you, they're not chatting, and they're not, like you interface with them maybe once, like a short message on a daily basis, something's not right. There's got to be more communication. Otherwise, you have no idea what they're doing. They might have a problem. They don't want to tell you. There's just a lot of problems. You have to tell them to be very proactive and over-communicating with you. It's very important. So, this is something I learned. Be really expressive. And don't just talk about the negative things, talk about the positive things. So, my team, I use Slack, and the thing is that you don't talk to your team unless something goes wrong a lot of times. Hey, the client had a problem. Why'd you do blah, blah, blah? But at remote working, because you don't talk about anything else, it turns out that you're always talking about negative things to a person. And that person's like, dude, you're so negative. Like, oh, God, this guy's unhappy with me, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't foster a good relationship. So you need to celebrate wins, talk about random things, and be really expressive. So we have these GIFs here, which, it's just stupid stuff, really. But stupid stuff that lightens up and gives you culture. Because if you don't have this, you don't have anything else. You're just staring at a screen at home or at a co-working space, and that's it. And you're not interacting with your employees in any other way. So this helps. Okay, meeting cadences. So a lot of companies do this, but I think it's really important to really hammer this home that for remote companies is even more important. Monday all hands meetings is what I have. You can choose a different day of the week. For programming, daily stand-ups if you're in Agile, or weekly check-ins. Other functions, like marketing or operations, weekly or bi-weekly check-ins. Now, check-ins mean that you actually have a one-on-one with another person through Skype or through chat, ideally through Skype. And you talk about, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What are your challenges? How can I help you? Blah, blah, blah. That's it. The reason why you do this is when we're kind of in the office, you kind of know where everybody's at. Like you know that this person's tired or this person's bored, or you kind of in general know how your colleagues are feeling. In remote setting, zip, nothing. You have no freaking clue. These check-ins allow a person to say, hey, you know what? I'm doing these art design projects, and it's so boring. I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Oh, okay, I'll just tell my manager and change it up. Change it up, do something different. If I didn't have that weekly check-in with you, I would have known that. Never in a lifetime. So it's absolutely important. It helps grease the whole machine and make sure that it keeps running properly, and that everybody's overall feeling is okay. The other reason why is remote workers, if they're working alone, they have there's a common disadvantage to working remote, and that's that you get lonely. Loneliness is the number one thing that people quit remote working or are unhappy. So it's absolutely important that these check-ins make them feel not as lonely. In a non-remote setting, that's not a problem. You look at them 5 days a week. Accountability and productivity. So one of the things is that people are afraid of is about how do I keep my employees productive, or I know what they're doing if I don't see them. That's one of the major reasons why people don't like remote work, or they fail at it, or they struggle with it, is because they're unable to keep track. So some people use timekeeping software to keep track of their time. This is typically for billing clients. A lot of people do that for billing, consulting style companies. I use a software similar to this, and I'll go through that in a bit. Ask their workers to log their activity on spreadsheets. So one way is if you're doing a task that's very repetitive, go out and find some leads. So that spreadsheet might be oh, I need the lead email, the name, the company they work for, blah, 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 blah. So they just put it in each row of their spreadsheet. And you say, the metric that I want per day is you need to produce 40 leads per day. Then every day, and there's a date as well in that column. So every day you look at, okay, today is June 27th. I look at all the leads. Oh, there's 40. Great. You did your job. If there's 20, I'm like, hey, what's happening? Well, how come you only did 20 today? And then you can have that conversation with them. And that allows you to keep track of their productivity. That's a simple example. Trello is famous. It helps you with project and task management. It's great. Trello is an awesome tool. It assigns tasks to each person. It gives you this is called a Kanban board, and for those of you who don't know, and it allows you to move each job or each task from one column to the next. So this is an in-progress task, and once it's done, the owner moves it to this one, and then when it's done, it moves into here, it moves into here. So it's a great project and task management tool so that you can assign and keep everybody accountable. I use this app called Desktime. There's a lot of them out in the market, and they basically measure productivity. you basically install an application on someone's computer, and it basically tracks when did they arrive, when did they leave, how effective, how productive they are. There's a beautiful graph that shows this is the productive time they have. Gray is neutral and red is unproductive. So you can see all the apps and stuff that they're looking at. So this gives you a lot of transparency in terms of what are they doing. But it's a bit extreme. Some people don't like it. Some people do. Some people are okay with it, some people don't. So if you do employ this, you should do it at the beginning, not in the middle of what you're doing of your remote working team, like during the middle, like when you've hired 3 or 4 people. You should do it at the beginning. And the third thing is you should let your potential candidates know that you'll be doing this. And you ask them that, hey, I'll be doing this. Are you okay with it? Communication agreements. This is just saying, hey, here are the expectations on when you need to reply to certain things. So Slack chat, which is a chat app, which is really a lot of people use. Reply ASAP, email, reply within 24 hours. And if you require action, title subject as urgent. If it's urgent, just text, WhatsApp, or call me. So it gives, the problem with this is that if you work in multiple time zones, if I send like a chat to somebody and it's their like 10 p.m., are they required to respond to that, right? Well, if it's 10 p.m. your time, no, it's not. And you're off work, no, it's not. Sometimes one of the second problems of working remote is people, believe it or not, tend to overwork because they're at home and they don't know when to stop. So it's absolutely important that you give them boundaries. I'm going to talk about that, I think, in a little bit. Yeah, here it is. Time zones. Set boundaries and schedules. People, when they work at home, tend to overwork and they burn out. So you make sure that you tell them, hey, you work from 9 to 6 and that's it. Or if you're doing more work, don't work beyond 10. It's a common problem. So set that schedule, like a maximum time. Request leave or AFK ahead of time. Again, if you're not going to be there, just mention ahead of time, not afterwards, not during. Has to be before. At the beginning, I would suggest with a plus minus 6 hour maximum time difference at the beginning until you get better at it. If you're like 12 hour, like 3 p.m. here, it's 3 a.m. over there, it's pretty tough. Like collaborating and coordinating is very difficult. Set golden hours for maximum overlap for meetings, video chats, synchronous communication. So what this means is like, if people are in different parts of the world, which a lot of these distributed companies are like, agree on 3 to 4 hours per day where everybody is online, so everybody can talk to each other and be on the same page and have those meetings and have synchronous communication. That's really important. All right, the third critical piece, building the right culture. Before I go on, does anybody have any questions on the past 2 sections? Am I speaking too fast? Sure, great question. So I have somebody from Slovenia in Eastern Europe. I have a team in the Philippines. And I used to have people in the US as well. And also I have a team in Hong Kong. So it's quite spread out.
So do you prefer they have a fixed working hour or actually they have autonomy to design where they should work?
Great question.
Or they achieve more tasks?
Great question. So it depends on the function. So for customer service and customer happiness, I have fixed hours because it's to serve the customer. For other roles and functions, I have fixed hours for them, but in general, it's a little bit more flexible. So for example, for programming, it's a little bit more flexible because as long as they show up for the golden hours, it's a lot more flexible in terms of them. They don't have to be solid working. So it depends, and it depends on the culture that you set for your team. Yeah, so it highly, highly depends. If everybody's in the same time zone, I recommend that you fix it. You fix the work hours, at least at the beginning. If you're unfamiliar with your team and you're not sure and you're starting out, I recommend fixing it. And then after you've gained trust and you've built a cadence and you've built all the right infrastructure, like the weekly check-ins and stuff, then you can start going beyond that.
So before you hire employees, you haven't met them before. How can you trust them?
It's a good question, yeah. So all the recruiting things I told you, the job test, I know that they can do the job. I speak with them on the phone or through the video chat, and they seem to talk and they seem to communicate well. And then I do the trial. So for some roles, I do a 3-day trial or a 1-week trial, and you'll know immediately. Do they show up to work? Are they communicating right? So with my Philippine staff, I do a 3-day or 1-week free trial. So I don't pay them. So show me what you got. Let's try this work. Let's communicate. See how it works. Within 1 week, you'll pretty much know if they're up to it or not. And you have to try and error a lot. A lot of people just, they don't show up for work. They work half day and then they don't tell you. And you immediately just, that's it. Sorry guys. Next. All right. With culture, a lot of the things with culture, building the right culture, is to tackle a lot of the challenges with the disadvantages of remote working. So this is the transparency that I was talking about, recording the meetings, transparency with meetings and what each other is doing. So Zoom is like Skype. But Zoom has a feature where if I'm having a meeting with you, it transcribes what we said to each other into like a document. So it turns what we're saying into words, on a document. Then you can share that with the rest of the team. So if people were not available or they're not in the right time zone, then they can go read it up and catch up on it afterwards. So just now I said, okay, so there's no natural team bonding when it comes to remote working because there's no opportunity to have that hallway conversation or that casual conversation you have with the person next to you and say, oh hey, by the way, I thought this was a really cool idea. Let's think this through, blah, blah, blah. There's no opportunity for that in remote working. So the only way that you can do that is you actually enforce team building during work hours. And you might be like, whoa, you guys have fun during work hours? Like you guys just kind of fool around? That's crazy. But I would go back to my previous point is, well, at work, everybody fools around probably 30 minutes a day. You just don't know about it. So in this case, everybody doesn't have that opportunity on a daily basis to kind of like fool around and just talk casual talk. Instead, you just base it on 1 hour and you set it. Like Friday afternoon, we'll have a weekly virtual happy hour. Everybody just grabs their beer, we just sit in front of the computer and we just talk randomly. We spend 1 hour doing it. And it's unbelievable how better the relationships that you build. Much, much more better. It makes it less transactional. It puts a human and more dimensions to the username on a chat, which that's just the name of the person. It puts more depth to that person. Weekly random pairing meetings, some people do this. So on a weekly basis, I might pair with you, and we talk about anything under the sun, but not work. How's your family? What are you guys doing? What are you working on? Whatever. Costume and baking contests, people can get creative with that. So you can have these contests through Skype. And positive feedback, kudos on Slack. So giving positive feedback on Slack is important because you're not there to say, hey, good job, well done, that was great, what you did. On remote, you don't have that opportunity. So again, it's balancing the negative and the positive feedback. So there's different ways to combat like presence or video presence. So this is an app called Puka Team, and what it does is that it's like Skype that's turned on like the whole period of time during the working hours. So if your team are extroverts, they really like talking to each other, you can have this app there. So while I'm working and I want to talk to somebody, it's just say, hey, Joel, hey, what's going on? I have this thing, blah, 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 let's talk about it. So it tries to mimic as if people are sitting together on a table. So this is something that we tried. We played online charades. Charades is a game where I get a clue. Let's say it's car, and I have to describe car using gestures to you guys, and you have to guess it. So I can't say anything. I just use gestures. So this game is great because she's trying to describe window, and she's just kind of describing it in a funky way, and we're all trying to guess it. So it's really great to kind of build team bonding and just lighten up the atmosphere so it's not always so serious. So we use Slack, which is a chat. It's similar to Google Hangouts, but I would say it's like Google Hangouts but on steroids. So you have different chats, which you can think of as rooms, and each room has a topic or a subject. So each person just goes into each one and talk about it. So we have a yay, which talks about positive things. We congratulate each other. We have one called new toys that people post like things that are not related to work. So it's like it tries to replace hallway conversations. Like me and you, we might have the same interest that we like dogs, for example. So we'll talk about each other's dogs. But we can create a Slack channel that has dogs, and people post pictures of their dogs. It's the same thing, but it's just digital. Okay, annual retreats and in-person squad meetups. So this is pretty critical. Nothing, no matter how much technology or how many tools you use online, can replace a face-to-face meeting. So I have retreats one to two times a year. I fly everybody into a certain location. Last year, we all flew into the Philippines, in Davao. We had like 18 people all in one house. It was amazing. It was super fun. Increases bonding. We talk about work. We talk about what's going to happen in the next year. It's fantastic. Since you save costs on rent and all that kind of stuff, the cost to do an annual retreat actually comes out to only a fraction of the cost that you would have spent actually renting an office. So totally worth it. All right. So here are some of the tools that I've talked about. I've listed them out here by function, so you guys can take a look at that and see which one works for you. And so these are the three key components that you really need. I think is absolutely important. And that's it. Any questions? Anything that, well, how about this? Why don't you talk about, what are some challenges for you in terms of setting up a team?
I'm curious about what challenge for you, right? Actually, you already managed this kind of remote working team, so what's the most challenge for you?
I would say most challenging for me is several things. Is definitely communication. Communication is definitely the number one thing. And knowing how everybody's feeling, how everybody's working. Are they overloaded? Do they have too much work? Do they don't have enough work? And making sure that everybody's happy, like relatively okay. The reason why, like, you say that because you're like thinking, oh wait, why does he care about people are happy or not? Well, the thing is that
You don't know if they're really happy.
yeah, you don't.
Say, I'm happy, I'm okay.
Exactly. You don't really actually know. You don't know. And if they're not happy, they leave, right? So when you're working with people, it's really easy to kind of feel that. And you can have those conversations early. But in remote working, you don't. So they could be unhappy for weeks, and then they leave. Then you're like, oh, why? Well, what happened? So that's one. Second is recruiting and finding people that can work remotely is another challenge. So it's a different type of job. And you need to find people that can always work independently and know what to do and be proactive about it and know how to prioritize is a bit difficult. So some people, they get stuck and then they don't tell you. They try to figure it out and they spend hours trying to figure it out. And if they were standing next to you, you immediately see that. Hey, dude, you're staring at that for so long. Like, what's wrong? You can immediately figure it out. But in remote work, a lot of times people don't know how to prioritize and they don't know that when's the time to like raise their hand for help. sometimes they don't want to look bad as well. Yeah. How about you? What challenges are you having with kind of recruiting and stuff like that? Haven't started. Okay. Okay. How about you? What challenges are you having, if you have any?
Sure, I don't have any remote work.
Oh, okay.
So it's something I'm considering for now business I'm doing. So.
Why consider remote?
Well, that would be more like direct to consumers when our needs, like customer service, and that can be done remotely.
Okay.
It's not something that can be done remotely. Or merchandising.
Okay.
And so you need to be like hands-on and you have to play and you see the whole team and discuss it. Like kind of like.
I see.
Remotely.
Okay. So so you're about to start a remote team, is that right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And have you like not maybe challenges in like managing the team, but have you had any challenges in recruiting and trying to figure out what to do next?
I think
Or
the whole question is actually quite big because I mean, first you have to know like, recruiting in person is already not the easiest thing. And think about like recruiting remotely and just double the effort. And then, so it's something that I know that it works for a lot of people, and I want to know how it actually work out for the other people.
Right.
In order to not getting a lot of lessons before I get to the right person.
That's true. Good. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, recruiting, I went through a lot earlier about making sure that you test the person for the job, you give them a test, like a trial. Honestly, the trials are the best, and you keep the trials short.
Right.
And that allows you to cycle through people the quickest so that you can find the right person.
In order to, for this company job to work really. And the process kind of like, you can't really write one and it will be perfect because sometimes you think it's done that way, but other people might not get it done that way. And then you want to simplify, or you have to add an extra step because you kind of like look diligent as a person and the other person's not. That is also taking time. So you have to like kind of invest quite a bit before you get to the point where you're ready to remotely like handling a team like that as well.
So when I first started, I didn't have any processes. I recorded it, and I told them just do the recording. And I would check their work after. So they would have a spreadsheet, and I would check their work after that. So I would start with that. And you won't know what your business needs until you actually try. You can try to prepare as much as you can, but if you don't have that experience, you won't be able to know what you really need from a remote perspective for your business. So the best advice I can give is just start really small. Like, I started remote with just one task. Copy this information from here to there. Answer this question with this template.
Yeah. So there's one thing that I would thought about, like is market research. Those definitely not absolutely need to be done in-house. You can have it done for a particular topic, and when you hire a marketing agency to do it, it's kind of quite expensive. It might not get the things you want, and you have another person doing it. It's pretty much like search, paste, copy, and then just give me a report.
Yep.
I thought we were doing like more like programming, but it's getting too complicated to get a point to get programs, or might as well hire someone remotely to get it done and get a cultural perspective to get that kind of research as well. So there's something I'm actually considering for the current business, but for the other business, really customer service, you need someone to be there, and this really can be done anywhere else.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. So like if the one thing I like about I first hired virtual assistants from the Philippines. And the one thing I love about virtual assistants is that you pretty much can do almost anything with a virtual assistant prior to actually coding. Like if you have an app and your app is, hey, I want to give dining recommendations to a user, blah, 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 blah. You could actually do that with a virtual assistant first. Like you don't need to build a 50,000 or like 100,000 Hong Kong dollar like app to do that. You don't need to build something. If you build a $100,000 app, that's like saying, hey, I built a shoe factory, but I only have one customer ordering 5 shoes. You don't even have a business yet. So you built a huge factory, is that smart? Everybody would call you stupid. Like, dude, you don't even have a business yet. But that's how people think about technology. So don't overbuild for what you currently have. If you only have 5 clients or 1 person, not even 1 person, just do it manually first. Most things can be done manually. You don't have to automate it. Automation is only done when the processes have been finalized and determined, and now you're scaling and you're optimizing it. That's what computers are amazing at. Doing something repeatedly at scale and then trying to optimize to reduce the time to do it. Oh, let's reduce the time by 20, 30% or whatever. So that's when it's good. So the other good thing about hiring remotely is you can test these ideas, whatever it is, a new business idea, a new process, new anything. You test it with a VA, the process will change here and there. It's so easy to tell a virtual assistant to change the process. It's a lot harder to change the process in an app. A lot harder.
The saving also comes in like not needing to get all this hardware in space, right? But other than that, is there actual saving in the because the person's based in the Philippines cheaper? Or?
Yeah. So there's a lot of labor arbitrage. So you can get cheaper labor. It's a third to a quarter cheaper than a person in Hong Kong. So you get labor price much cheaper, no rent, much cheaper insurance, no MPF.
You pay insurance for those through the website?
I do pay insurance for them, but it's very cheap. And then also like you save money on computers and like office stuff, furniture, and you save. So that's pretty much the bulk of it. And as you said, Hong Kong is so expensive. Like why? Why? You don't need to. You don't need to pay for that.
And another thing is about, some of the work is quite easy, it can be done modulally, give them tasks to get it done. What about get to something a bit more like commercially sensitive, like you have to do some, per job, you have to do cost calculations, you let those people do it, or you do it all by your staff in-house?
So I process some pretty sensitive information with my team. So first off, you develop trust. You work with them for a while, make sure you trust them. And second of all, you develop the right process again. And third is you have to write some policy about hey, don't leave your computer lying around. Make sure there's a password. Oh, and by the way, prove to me that you actually the password protected your computer. That type of stuff. And you do that, have them prove it to you, and then that's what you do. Even in a non-remote setting, like you're working at an office, somebody could take a USB drive and plug in your computer and then take it out too, right? When you're not there, they could also do that too. So you gotta do as much as you can.
Actually, those stuff don't happen in a way that the person have an intention. It's more like when you calculate a job, like you send out quotation, you have a job, a marketing job, it's at $50,000. How you derive the cost and how do you set price and stuff like that? Generally, do you do it by a few selected people, or those are okay because those are few remotely working people doing the campaign and let them calculate the cost up front and get to you so you know how to charge a client, or how does it work for you? For B2B, that kind of thing. It's not like an item that is cost $5 you make every time and you sell for $10.
So you're talking about hours, right? Like hours of people's labor?
So if there's a company actually a marketing campaign through social media, and then that 3 people doing remotely can complete the job. Give them the job, and then generally you want to calculate how much it costs you. My business doesn't work like that. I'm not a consulting business. I actually run a software company, so we develop software for our clients. I would say I have had cases where people ask me more on a project basis when we do manual work. So what I do is I just estimate what the task is, what the tasks are, and then you just multiply by your cost, and then you just determine how much what multiple you want to sell it at to your clients. So you actually do those cost calculation and don't have someone remotely doing it for you? If you want to do a one-man band to the point where you actually really have a remote team.
Well, I don't do those calculations often. So I do them myself, But if I needed to have that done, I do have an HR person that I've actually have asked her before to do that, and that HR person would calculate that for me. Yeah. But you know, you can set a billing rate for your people, and you could set that as the billing rate for them, and you can determine that like on a separate spreadsheet what the profit is for that billing rate, and then you just tell them to do the costing based off of the billing rate or something. Then they will never know what everybody's costs are. That's one way to do it. You have any questions, Matthias?
No, for me it's quite clear. I mean, for us, I mean, we already have like some kind of remote team working because I have one guy in my team that is in China and come here only sometimes because he actually based in Wuhan. But in this case, I mean, for me it was easy to build the trust because actually it was my ex-co-worker in a previous company. And then like, yeah, we are like in free, but then we have another 8 people in Dubai. That is that quarter. Actually, we have a lot of problems already like to discuss between each other with normal software if we know each other. So
what challenges are you facing right now? Because in your case, you're a partial remote company, not fully. So you've got a lot of people, some people in one place and
the
people all
most complicated things is the coordination between departments.
Okay.
So we're starting to work out something with Asana.
Go good. Asana's good.
Because we tried Trello before, but nobody, and I mean not every department was willing to really spend time there to update things. And I think Asana, for me personally, works slightly better because you can set up like like the days, the deadlines. We tried for some projects Slack, but I didn't fancy too much. Now a big problem we have is with connections. Because like in Dubai is even worse than China.
For internet?
VPN, yes.
Oh, really?
I mean, they have very fast connection. The problem is they have like a lot of, like for example, Skype is blocked, Discord is blocked, so like they have a lot of like this kind of things. So
That's a challenge.
either you use VPN or you need to find some kind of
Right.
way because it's not always stable. So like mostly are these kind of things. But I would say that the biggest problem is when you have people who never really met each other, so like maybe the new staff here in Hong Kong, that of course they didn't get yet, like maybe to go to Italy, Switzerland, or where we had a meeting where there are everybody, so maybe for like few months they need to work each other and they have no idea who exactly is the other person. This creates a little bit of a problem in my opinion. So for sure like the meetings, I mean the real life meeting at least once or twice a year are for sure important based on my experience. And also, I think the thing that we want more is like the company culture to be sure that everybody follows a little bit the direction. So some of the things we do, like the Monday we always have a meeting all together, but then again there is some connection issues, kind of stuff. But, for me, it's interesting because now we're looking for customer service. Because we basically retail our product worldwide, and now we have a little bit problem with translation because we have customer from mostly, I mean, I would say like, luckily 80% is English speaker.
Yeah.
So my guy in China can manage, but then we have a lot of Italian customers. And then it's really a challenge to find somebody either here or anywhere that is able to fluently speak Italian.
Right.
And then we have a lot of Arabic customer.
Okay. So you need somebody to speak Arabic.
Google Translator helps, but not so much.
Yeah. They'll probably respond and be like, are you using Google Translate?
To be fair, the Italian translation is done by me, not for my colleagues in China. So I made some template for the customers for the basic things.
Oh, you translate to Chinese from Italian?
No, I mean the guy is, he's the Chinese guy who actually reply in Italian, even if he doesn't speak Italian.
Okay.
So it's like standard templates,
Cool.
maybe some other things. But I mean, it's a bit complicated, but we are trying to sort it out.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, anybody have any other questions or?
So your software can work in China, right?
My software? No, I do not sell in China. China is not a market that I go for. I only do US, Australia, and UK, and Europe. Basically everywhere except China.
Why?
Well, because people can kind of use Instagram in China, but there's just not a lot of businesses that want to go into China. So my clients are businesses, small, medium businesses. So there's just not a lot of businesses that want to go into China to use Instagram. If you go to China, are you going to use Instagram?
It's blocked now, as far as I know.
Well, not only that, people don't even use it. They use WeChat. They use, other stuff. They don't, it's not their first thought. So, no, like nobody really uses it. There's some people that use it, but it's a small population. And that population is not very relevant. Like when it comes to the whole picture, people just prefer like WeChat, go for WeChat. Yeah. Well, if you guys have any other questions and regarding your challenges, feel free to email me, and I'll definitely try to share some of the things that I've learned, give you some recommendations. Yeah, I'm open to that. So, yeah.
And you're based in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Hong Kong, and I have 3 other people and 2 other interns as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Actually,
Hi.
I want to get in touch with you because I want to ask